Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast between Argos, Xenix, and DreamFou, this time on Metalopolis. Here we have DreamFou spawning as the red Protoss player at the 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock position. Meanwhile, we have Argos Xenix spawning over here at the 6 o'clock position as the blue Zerg. So this will be Zerg versus Protoss here on Metalopolis. Gonna go ahead and throw up the production tab and try to exactly see what is happening in this matchup. Both players hoping for a good game, as I believe this game was taken from Battle.net. Sorry for the bumping around, as I'm currently trying to adjust all the headphones and the mouse and my Rubik's Cube that shouldn't be on my desk right now. Anyways, just moving back to the game. Taking a look at the game, we now see a pylon being placed down here. Pretty much a standard opening so far, as a probe now makes its way over here to the 9 o'clock expansion. We'll quickly find that Argos Xenix is not there and move along its merry way. We do also see a drone now making its way out across the map. The drone doing a quick check, making sure that there is nothing over here. And then we'll be hugging along this corner in order to do some additional scouting. Will the Overlord actually see? Yes, he does see that there is a probe there. So as he sees that there is that probe, the drone should try to make its way over here and then perhaps go into this direction, as the drone should quickly realize that he is not spawning there. Yeah, the drone now making its way back over here, as now we see an Overlord and a probe coming into this location here. We do see a gateway currently being warped in as well, so there is not going to be any forge play, no pylon play, as we now see an extractor being placed down. So it's going to be extractor before a spawning pool, as that drone as a drone over here now growing up to be a hatchery. So nicely done. It looked as though he was trying to go the extractor and then for a spawning pool, and now that DreamFou sees that there is not a Vespian geyser laid down anymore, he most likely knows that there is a hatchery here, and now using that patrol trick to make sure that no pylons can be warped in on this low ground, and he will be able to transfer queens and drones over to that low ground expansion as well. We do see a spawning pool now coming into play. I really like that play by Argos. Argos making sure to keep his opponent in the dark as to what he was really trying to go for. And now Overlords making their way out across the map. Drone now just continuing to circle around this base over here, getting plenty of sight. Seeing that there's only one Vespian geyser down so far, as that Cybernetics core is still warping in. We may see a second Vespian geyser. No second Vespian geyser, as we now see a Zealot currently being trained. The Zealot will not be able to catch up to that drone, as the drone does move slightly faster than a Zealot. So unless the drone is no longer moving, as if the drone is stationary, it will get taken down. He now sees that there is some damage, that the gateway is now currently warping in something and may try to get out of here. Now currently chrono boosting, so we may get a stalker coming out of there as well. This is all coming off of one gas so far, as DreamFou just gets his second assimilator up. Back over here, we now see Argos Xenix currently running off of 2 hatcheries, is going to transfer some drones, not too many, as his harvester count is rather relatively low, only sitting on 15 harvesters, 14 of which are currently mining, and 3 of them are currently mining gas. And now you can see once again Argos Zenith now instead trying to just pull all of his guys off of the extractor and trying to get some additional minerals instead. That one drone, however, will have its days numbered, as that stalker will be able to catch up to it in just a moment. Now coming in for another chrono boost, Zealot will be able to get 1 round of attack, and there it goes. So no more scouting coming in. We do see a Zergling now trying to walk up the ramp here, as we also have an Overlord hiding out back over here. So it is going to be an early aggression of 2 stalkers and perhaps 1 Zealot. No, only 2 stalkers. And taking a look at the base of Argos Xenix, Argos does definitely need to create some additional production units. Otherwise, those stalkers are going to be able to get a lot of damage very easily. A second Zergling now coming in, trying to test the waters, sees that there are some more stalkers coming in, and that Zergling trying to run away, unable to get back home. And now you can see Argos Zenith currently trying to train up 12 Zerglings, continuing to spawn larvae as well. Needs to get as much larva production as possible in order to deal with this stalker harassment. 1 drone may get taken down. Oh no, that drone, wow, natural regeneration for the win right there. That drone down to 1 hit point, saving himself 50 minerals in that fight. And now those Zerglings trying to give chase against those stalkers. Those stalkers moving at the same speed as those Zerglings, but those Zerglings have to stop and then have to re-engage, as those stalkers are able to just constantly kite these units. So DreamFou doing a great job pulling back with these units, and that stalker very low on hit points, and that's continuing to walk away, as that stalker able to get off and get even more free kills once again. However, with that metabolic boost now being completed, both of DreamFou's stalkers are going to get taken down. The stalker unable to run away from those Zerglings. You can see how fast these stalkers, or those Zerglings, are trying to take down that one stalker down to 4 hit points, and there it goes. However, DreamFou now changing up his strategy and going into mass sentry play. So with a lot of sentries, he will be able to get off a lot of force fields and also will be able to warp in the Nexus in just a moment. If he tries to move down this ramp, he should be fairly successful. If he places a pylon here and then a Nexus here, Zerglings will have a hard time trying to swarm in, especially with those sentries getting a lot of free shots and also being able to drop down those force fields, thereby disrupting any sources of attacks. We do see some Zerglings now coming around over here, making sure that there are no hidden production buildings, as one Overlord hanging by these two assimilators, able to see how much gas DreamFou is currently trying to mine, and knows that he's running off of 2 gas at this stage. Argos Zenix still only running off of 1 gas so far, as he's going into a 3rd hatchery. Now, you may be wondering why, as a Zerg player, you want to go into 3 hatcheries, and the reason is because you do not see a Roach Warren coming out of Argos Zenix just quite yet. So that means that the only units he's able to produce are Zerglings. Zerglings are very, very larva-intensive units, as it takes 1 larva to produce 2 Zerglings, but on the other hand, you can have 1 larva to also produce 1 Roach, or 1 larva to produce 1 Ultralisk, so he needs additional larva in order to keep up in this macro game. We do see DreamFou currently getting this 1 Nexus up and running now, as both sides are just sitting in their base trying to get a strong economy going, and now we see a Stargate. That Stargate will be able to train some Phoenixes, also be able to train Void Rays, as he cancels a Phoenix and now decides to train a Void Ray instead. The Void Ray will come out in about 50 game seconds off of 1 chrono boost there, as some probes now being transferred from the main base over here to this natural expansion. Zergling's going to try to test the waters, quickly get shot down by those particle or disruption beams from those sentries, as DreamFou now able to mine even more minerals, perhaps get some additional assimilators down for more gas as well. We do see 1 Void Ray nearing completion, also training up 2 probes. Army-wise, you can see a 900 mineral army versus a 425, and you can also see a much stronger gas army coming in from DreamFou. Then Zenix. Zenix, on the other hand, currently getting the upgrades, so now getting for the level 1 claw attacks and also getting the level 1 carapace upgrades as well. So the carapace upgrades will allow these Zerglings to obviously take more damage. However, he does not have enough Zerglings yet for that advantage to really become apparent until later in the game. Also seeing some creep tumors being laid down, and we may get another hatchery being placed down here in just a moment, as the Zerg player never wants to be even on expansions. 1 Void Ray now quickly able to take down one of those scouting Zerglings activating that Zonaga Watchtower, and the Phoenixes may be able to deal some significant damage. Will this work out? We do see a Spore Crawler now trying to come into play. Queen's getting off 1 round of those acid spines, forcing that Phoenix to return. But DreamFou is pretty much just sitting in his base. He does not have nearly as much scouting information as Argos Zenix. Zenix covering about, I would say, 50% of this map so far, as he's able to scout out this expansion down over here as well. Phoenix is now dealing damage towards these Overlords. Overlords will not be able to escape. Those Void Rays also able to move and attack, deal some damage as well. In comes a new Queen, and those Phoenixes now dealing some damage, trying to back off once again. Void Ray does move relatively slowly at 2.25, does not want to take any critical damage, and finally take some damage there, now down to 133 hit points with no shields currently being recharged. Back over here, taking a look at the production, we see more Phoenixes currently being produced, as those Phoenixes now graviton beaming many of those Queens. However, it looks as though, yeah, the Queens were able to take down that Void Ray, and with so many Phoenixes currently running off of 4 Phoenixes, he was able to handle that Void Ray Phoenix harassment. Now transitioning into a 6-gate build. So we are going to, is that 7 gates? 7-gate build coming in from DreamFou. So DreamFou now wanting to be able to macro up a lot of Stalkers, as these Phoenixes are now going for air superiority. Will be able to clean up many of those Overlords as they continue to scout across the map. Phoenixes acting like Corsairs from StarCraft 1, except for they don't deal splash damage. We do see some Stalkers and Sentries now moving out. Army-wise, DreamFou just in a dominating position with 5 times the army size of Argos Zenix. Argos Zenix, however, does have the much stronger economy with 81 Harvesters. So taking a look at his army, 81 food of his army is currently sitting on Harvesters, and then with the 4 Queens that he also has, he really has no army whatsoever. Phoenix is once again in the air trying to engage. There is 1 Queen perhaps, but those Phoenixes will be able to graviton beam this 1 Queen and take it down relatively easily, but another hatchery being laid down as well. quickly Graviton beaming 1 queen, 2 additional queens trying to come over, trying to save it. Are we going to get a transfusion? No transfusion, down to 3 hit points. And now that queen able to be saved in just a moment, now getting a transfusion as a Spore Crawler now coming into play. We are now going into Corruptors. So the Corruptors are now being trained up in order to counter the Phoenixes that are in the air. And the Corruptors do have a natural 2 armor, so they are able to deal a lot of damage towards those Phoenixes. They also have a range of 6 compared to a range of 4, even though they do not deal bonus damage there. Trying to deal more damage with those Corruptors. Corruptors do move at the same movement speed as a Stalker, which is relatively fast. However, Phoenixes move as quickly as a Hellion, so those Phoenixes are able to move around much more quickly there. Taking a look at the army sizes, 3,100 versus 1,000. DreamFou may simply be able to attack, move, and take out Argos Zenith. He is in such a dominating position. We do see a couple, 6 Corruptors in the air, and those Corruptors will be able to shoot down that Colossus, but there are a lot of Stalkers on the ground, and those Stalkers are going to be able to deal that full 12 damage against those Corruptors once you account for the armor, and the Stalkers do not have any weapons upgrade. Extended Thermal Lance research now being researched as we are now going into massive number of Roaches. So mass Roach currently being trained. We are already up to 21 Roaches. Already up to 28 Roaches and 6 Corruptors. But those Roaches are going to have a very difficult time trying to fight back against those Colossus, as those Colossus are now about to reach critical mass. Once you have 3 to 5 Colossus with Stalker support, any ground army coming in from a Zerg player is easily torn apart by the extended Thermal Lance range. Back over here, we now see currently running off of 7 gateways. 8. Is that 7 or 8? That is 7 warp gates and 1 robotics facility. We also see another nexus being laid down here, so Argos Zenith will not have the economic advantage for very much longer, but he is currently mining at 2,200 minerals every game minute, and now sitting at 200 over 200 food, and now almost at 500 food count or 500 minerals. So he does want to start moving out with these units and trying to engage, almost able to take down and deal enough damage over here. There are Corruptors in the air. Those Corruptors would be able to start corrupting against those Colossus. Corruptors able to deal massive damage towards those Colossus as they are massive units. However, force fields coming into play and brilliantly fighting out Roaches trying to get within combat distance. Unable to, as those Stalkers just have a range of 6 compared to a range of 4, and DreamFou easily winning out on that fight. Argos Zenith, however, does have this hatchery over here at the 3 o'clock position, currently trying to warp or morph in as well. Also some Hydralisks, but those Hydralisks do move very slowly and take a lot of damage from those Colossus. Roaches now trying to engage. No Ultralisks to try to disrupt any of those force fields, and both sides suffering heavy casualties as both sides continue to try to deal damage. Roaches are able to deal a lot of damage as well. Sentry is also throwing up those Guardian Shields, adding 2 armor across all the damage from those Roaches and those Hydralisks as well. Roaches continue to chase down. Will they be able to deal any damage? We do have Burrow currently researched, and those Roaches do move much more quickly than those Stalkers. Slightly faster than those Stalkers and much more quickly than those Colossus, and those Colossus now being forced to pull back. 1925 currently for DreamFou. However, with that warping, he is now already back up to even, and now with this Colossus being chrono boosted, he will have an even army in just a moment. Phoenixes are in the air cleaning up many of the overlords, but Argos Zenith does have that necessary 4th base now, as the main base is nearly being mined out, also getting an infestation pit, so that could be for infestors or for hive tech. Also getting a Nidus network down, so that Nidus network coming into play will be able to start popping up Nidus worms and perhaps do a lot of hit and run tactics. So two of the best tactics that I've seen Argos Zenith use are infestors and Nidus play, being able to just constantly be where the Protoss army is not. You can see DreamFou trying to make sure that I believe he did see that Nidus network, wants to make sure that there is no Nidus worm here, quickly gets a pylon here, making sure that there is no Nidus worm, and making sure that no units are able to flood in and take down the main productions of DreamFou. Back over here, Phoenixes in the air, able to deal a lot of damages. Roaches unable to attack air, obviously. And now stay tuned for part 2 of this replay between Argos Zenith and DreamFou here on Metalopolis.